Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me closely, because what I'm about to tell you can change everything. 3 days. That's all I'm asking you for. Just 3 days. Not a year, not a lifetime. Just 3 days of changing the way you speak to yourself. Because the voice inside your head, it's the most powerful weapon you'll ever carry, and for too many people, it's being used against them. Think about it. Most people wake up and the first thing they do is beat themselves down. I'm tired. I'm not good enough. I'll never get ahead. They replay the same broken record day after day, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But what if, for just 3 days, you flipped that script? What if you spoke to yourself like the person you know you're meant to be, not the one you've been settling as? For 3 days, I want you to feed your mind words that ignite fire instead of fear. When you wake up, don't say, I'm tired. Say, I'm alive, I'm powerful, and today I'm unstoppable. Don't say, I don't know if I can do this. Say, I always find a way, I always rise, I always figure it out. Your brain doesn't know the difference between truth and a command. It obeys the words you repeat with certainty. So give it orders that build you, not bury you. I promise you, if you do this for 3 days, you'll notice a shift. Your body will move differently. Your energy will rise. Doors you thought were locked will start to open because your perception of yourself is the master key. And here's the truth: the world responds to the energy you project. If you walk into a room believing you're broken, that's how people see you. But if you walk in with conviction, certainty, and a voice that says, I am enough, I am built for this, I am destined for more, suddenly opportunities appear, people listen, and momentum builds. 3 days, that's the challenge. Talk to yourself like you matter. Talk to yourself like you're worth it. Talk to yourself like you're the leader of your own life, not a follower of your fears. Because the moment you change your words, you change your focus. When you change your focus, you change your feelings. And when you change your feelings, you change your actions. That's how transformation happens, not in years, not in decades, but in the decision to start now. So for the next 3 days, every single time you catch yourself slipping into negativity, stop and flip it. Replace I can't with I will. Replace I'm not enough with I'm more than ready. Replace doubt with certainty, fear with faith, hesitation with action. Give me 3 days of this new voice, this new power, this new standard, and I promise you'll never want to go back, because you'll feel what it's like to live as the version of you that was always waiting to break free. The question is, will you take the challenge? Will you own your voice? Will you speak life into your soul for 3 days and discover what you're really capable of? Your new life doesn't start in a year. It doesn't start next Monday. It starts the moment you decide to talk to yourself differently. 3 days. That's all it takes to ignite the fire. And once it's lit, nothing can put it out. Your words create your world. Think about that for a moment. Every single word you speak to yourself is either building the life you want or tearing it down brick by brick. It is not just a metaphor, it is a literal truth. The human mind is a machine that obeys instructions. It doesn't argue, it doesn't debate, it simply executes what you feed it. And most people spend their entire lives feeding it the wrong instructions. They wake up in the morning and the first words out of their mouth are complaints, excuses, doubts, fears. I'm tired. I can't handle this. I'll never be enough. They speak these words as though they are gospel truth, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But your mind doesn't know the difference between fiction and reality. It obeys your commands. It shapes your perception, your behavior, and ultimately your destiny based on what you tell it repeatedly. That is why your words are so powerful. That is why the way you talk to yourself matters more than anything else you do in a day. Now imagine, just for a moment, if you could flip the script. What if you decided right now that for the next 3 days, every word you speak to yourself would serve you instead of sabotage you? Every thought, every sentence, every inner dialogue would be a declaration of power, potential, and possibility. You would stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I will. You would stop saying, I'm not ready, and start saying, I am more than capable. The shift doesn't come from external circumstances. It doesn't come from luck or timing or waiting for the perfect opportunity. It comes from the internal voice, the one you've been neglecting, the one you've been underestimating, the one that can either destroy you or elevate you depending on how you use it. Think about all the times you've held yourself back. You've said no to opportunities. You've avoided challenges. You've limited yourself because the voice inside your head told you to. And it's not just about fear. It's about the subtle messages that erode confidence over time. Words like, I'm too tired, I'm too old, I'm not smart enough, I don't have what it takes. Each word is a command to your brain, a signal that tells it to slow down, to settle, to stay small. But when you reverse that, when you deliberately choose words that empower, you set in motion a chain reaction that affects everything in your life. Your energy shifts, your focus sharpens, your actions align with your intentions. And suddenly doors that seemed closed begin to open. Challenges that felt insurmountable become solvable. Momentum builds, and it builds fast because the world responds to the person you become on the inside first. The question is not whether you can do it. The question is whether you are willing to commit. Are you willing to take 3 days and transform the way you communicate with yourself? 3 days of speaking life instead of limitations. 3 days of commanding your mind to support you instead of tear you down. 3 days of saying, I am capable, I am worthy, I am unstoppable, instead of repeating the same worn-out excuses. And here's the beauty of it, your mind will start to believe it. Your body will respond, your energy will rise. The shift is immediate, the shift is real, and it doesn't require magic or talent. It requires discipline, focus, and the courage to speak to yourself like you matter because you do. Consider the way champions, leaders, and high achievers operate. They do not wake up and tell themselves they can't handle the day. They do not drown in self-doubt or linger in hesitation. They speak with clarity, with authority, and with unwavering belief in their own potential. They feed their minds with commands that elevate, inspire, and drive them toward action. And the results are not accidental. They are inevitable because the inner voice is aligned with their goals. That is what separates those who succeed from those who drift. It is not luck. It is not circumstances. It is the relentless habit of controlling the conversation inside their own mind. Now, imagine applying that to your life for just 3 days. The first morning, you wake up and instead of the usual grumbling, you say, today, I am unstoppable. Today, I take control of my destiny. You feel the energy surge through your body, the tension in your chest easing, the doubt dissipating. Throughout the day, when challenges arise, instead of thinking, I can't handle this, you say, I always find a way. I always rise. I always succeed. Your decisions become faster, your confidence sharper, your actions bolder. On the second day, the words feel easier. The habit begins to form. The voice that once criticized and doubted now motivates and commands. On the third day, you start to notice subtle but powerful changes. You stand taller, walk with more confidence, interact with people differently, approach tasks with clarity and energy, and feel a sense of control that you haven't felt in years. You realize that the voice in your head is no longer your enemy. It is your most powerful ally. This is not just about self-esteem or positive thinking. This is about neuroscience, about programming your mind for success, about creating a feedback loop where your words drive your feelings drive your actions, and your actions shape your results. Every word you speak is a seed, and those seeds grow into patterns, habits, and outcomes. Speak words that empower, and the garden of your life will flourish. Speak words that destroy, and your life will stagnate. The choice is always yours, always. And the incredible thing is, it doesn't take long to start seeing results. 3 days is enough to ignite the fire. 3 days is enough to prove to yourself that you can break free from the negative loops, the self-limiting beliefs, and the mental prison you've been living in. 3 days is enough to start a transformation that compounds exponentially over time. So when you think about your future, when you think about what you are capable of achieving, remember this: your words are not just sounds. They are commands, they are instructions. They are the foundation upon which your life is built. Change them, and you change everything. The moment you commit to speaking to yourself differently, the moment you decide to feed your mind the words of power, confidence, and possibility, you set yourself on a path to results that are bigger than anything you imagined. And the journey doesn't stop at 3 days. 3 days is just the beginning. It is proof. It is a spark. It is a declaration that you are ready to step into the person you were always meant to be. Every time you catch a thought that says, I can't, replace it with, I will. Every time you hear, I'm not enough, replace it with, I am more than ready. Every time fear or hesitation creeps in, speak louder than it with words that affirm your power, your potential, and your destiny. Because the truth is, your life mirrors your inner dialogue. It is a reflection of how you treat yourself inside your mind. Speak with love, with courage, with conviction, and your world will respond in kind. 3 days of intentional self-talk can shift your energy, focus, and a momentum more than years of wishing and hoping. Think about that. Years of hoping, wishing, and waiting for the right time to feel confident, successful, or unstoppable, yet it never comes because nothing changes unless you take action internally first. Most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances, waiting for external validation, waiting for conditions to align, hoping someone will hand them the motivation they lack. But the truth is motivation is not external, it is internal. Motivation is the result of the words you speak to yourself, the energy you generate inside, and the belief you cultivate in your own power. And here's the reality: 3 days of focused, deliberate, intentional self-talk can do more to change your trajectory than decades of passive dreaming. Your mind is constantly listening to the narrative you give it. Every thought, every phrase, every whisper inside your head is a signal that programs your neural pathways, trains your focus, and influences your behavior. If you allow negative, limiting, or self-defeating language to dominate, you are essentially telling your brain to reinforce doubt, hesitation, and fear. You are training yourself to settle, to hold back, to remain small, and to play safe. But the opposite is also true. When you consciously, deliberately, intentionally choose words that empower, uplift, and command your potential, you are giving your brain a blueprint to act, to create, to expand, and to succeed. The power of your words is not just poetic, it is scientific. The words you repeat shape your identity. They shape your energy. They shape your actions. And actions shape your results. Now, consider the idea of 3 days. 3 days is short enough that it feels manageable, but long enough to create a shift in your neural patterns. It is long enough to start breaking the old habits of negativity, doubt, and hesitation, and to form new habits of courage, confidence, and determination. For 3 days, you can commit to speaking to yourself as though you already embody the version of yourself you desire. You can wake up in the morning and say, I am powerful. I am unstoppable. I am capable of handling whatever comes my way today. You can remind yourself through the day that every challenge is an opportunity, every obstacle is a stepping stone, and every setback is a lesson. You can choose to consciously override the old voice of fear and limitation with a new voice of empowerment and possibility. Imagine the ripple effect of this simple commitment. When you talk to yourself with intention, your energy begins to shift. Your confidence begins to rise. You carry yourself differently. You approach tasks with clarity and determination instead of hesitation and doubt. You engage with people differently because the energy you project is different. Opportunities that were previously invisible or intimidating now appear, and you notice solutions you never saw before. Momentum builds quickly because your internal dialogue is now aligned with action. Action flows naturally from belief, and belief is fueled by the words you speak to yourself. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand this principle intuitively. They know that success does not start with circumstances. It starts with mindset. It starts with the voice inside your head. It starts with the words you use to define your capabilities, your potential, and your purpose. They do not leave their confidence, their clarity, or their energy to chance. They feed themselves a daily diet of empowering, intentional language that conditions their mind to expect, to anticipate, and to achieve greatness. And the remarkable thing is you can do the same. You don't need permission. You don't need resources. You don't need approval. All you need is your voice and the willingness to speak it deliberately for 3 days. 3 days of intentional self-talk is a commitment to yourself. It is a commitment to take control of the most important relationship in your life, the relationship with your own mind. Most people spend more energy criticizing themselves than they do planning, acting, or learning. They focus on what they cannot do, what they lack, or what has gone wrong. But when you consciously choose words that support, uplift, and empower, you reprogram your internal operating system. You shift your focus from limitations to possibilities, from fear to courage, from hesitation to action. 3 days may seem brief, but in the realm of your mind, 3 days of consistent, intentional messaging is enough to start a transformation that accelerates exponentially over time. Now, consider the practical application. The moment you wake up, the first words you speak set the tone for the entire day. Most people let negativity creep in before their first conscious thought even forms. They check their phone, read bad news, think about problems, and reactively enter a state of worry or doubt. But if you consciously decide that the first words you speak are words of power, confidence, and determination, the trajectory of your day changes. You are no longer a passive participant in your own life. You are now a conscious creator. Throughout the day, whenever negative thoughts arise, which they will, you replace them immediately. I can't becomes I will. I'm not ready becomes I am prepared. I'm too small becomes I am capable of greatness. Each replacement reinforces new neural pathways, rewires your perception, and strengthens the habit of empowerment. By the second day, you begin to notice a subtle shift in your energy. You are not just talking differently, you are thinking differently. You are not just acting differently, you are feeling differently. Your focus sharpens, your resilience increases, and your interactions with the world start to align with the empowered narrative you are cultivating internally. People notice your energy. Situations respond to your presence. Challenges become opportunities because your mind is trained to see possibility rather than limitation. The momentum grows naturally because your internal state is now guiding your external actions. By the third day, you begin to experience what it feels like to live intentionally with focus, with energy, with belief in your own capabilities. You realize that the voice you have been relying on your entire life, sometimes critical, sometimes doubtful, can actually be your greatest ally. You discover that you can consciously direct your energy, focus, and momentum simply by the words you choose to speak. The transformation begins internally, but it manifests externally in every area of your life. And once you experience this, you understand that it is not about luck, timing, or circumstance. It is about control, clarity, and deliberate practice. The extraordinary truth is that 3 days of intentional self-talk is just the beginning. It proves to yourself that change is possible. It demonstrates that you have the power to influence your own mind and consequently your life. It shows you that the words you speak are not merely words. They are commands, instructions, and catalysts for action. When your internal dialogue is aligned with your goals, your actions accelerate, your confidence grows, and your energy multiplies. The cycle of empowerment becomes unstoppable because each day reinforces the previous day's progress and the transformation compounds over time. When you commit to 3 days of intentional self-talk, you are committing to yourself, your growth, and your potential. You are declaring that you will no longer be a passive participant in your own life. You are asserting control over the most powerful tool you have, your mind. You are learning that your thoughts, words, and energy are inseparable, and that by controlling one, you influence the others. 3 days may seem small, but the internal shift that occurs is monumental. It is the spark that ignites a fire, the seed that grows into unstoppable momentum, and the first step toward a life that reflects your highest potential. Stop letting fear and doubt control your mind. Stop letting hesitation dictate your actions. Stop allowing the small voice of uncertainty to convince you that you are incapable, unworthy, or unprepared. The truth is, fear and doubt are nothing more than signals that your mind has been trained to respond to for far too long. They are not facts, they are stories you tell yourself. They are patterns you have repeated over time until they feel normal. And the moment you recognize them for what they are, the moment you refuse to obey them, you take back control of your life. You take back the power that has always been yours, but that you've been giving away piece by piece to a mind that can be trained to serve you instead of sabotage you. Think about the times you have held yourself back. Think about the opportunities you didn't pursue because doubt whispered, you can't do it. Think about the decisions you avoided because fear said, it's too risky. Think about the moments when you settled for less than you deserve because hesitation told you to wait, to delay, to shrink. That is the cost of letting fear and doubt lead your life. But here is the liberating truth. You do not have to follow them. You can interrupt that story at any moment. You can step in and speak to yourself with the clarity, courage, and conviction that aligns with who you truly are and who you are meant to become. Your mind is listening. Your body responds. Your life begins to change the instant you start telling yourself the truth of your power rather than the lie of your limitations. For too long, most people have operated under the illusion that fear and doubt are unavoidable, that they must learn to live with it, that these feelings are permanent fixtures of life. But the reality is that they are only as strong as the words you give them. When you say, I can't handle this, fear becomes reality. When you say, I'm not ready, doubt solidifies into an action. But when you say, I can, I will, I am capable, the energy inside you shifts instantly. Your focus sharpens, your confidence rises, your body moves differently. Momentum begins to build because action flows naturally from belief, and belief is generated by the words you speak consistently, deliberately, and with intensity. Now, consider the power of deliberate self-talk for just 3 days. 3 days is all it takes to begin rewiring your mind to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. 3 days is enough to interrupt the habitual cycle of fear and doubt and replace it with a new pattern, one of courage, clarity, and certainty. For 3 days, you can commit to speaking to yourself like the person you want to be. You can refuse to allow negativity, hesitation, and uncertainty to have any influence over your thoughts. You can wake up and say, I am capable. I am prepared. I am unstoppable. You can repeat it throughout the day, reinforcing your internal dialogue and sending a clear signal to your brain that you are no longer a passive observer, but an active creator of your reality. Think about what this does to your energy. Fear and doubt drain energy, but intentional, empowering self-talk generates it. It changes posture, breathing, and focus. It creates a heightened state of awareness where solutions appear faster, clarity emerges, and courage takes over. Every time you catch yourself hesitating and instead speak a word of power, you strengthen the habit of action. You build neural pathways that favor confidence over uncertainty, decisiveness over indecision, and progress over stagnation. Within 3 days, you begin to notice the subtle but profound differences in how you think, feel, and act. Your mind begins to reorient itself toward possibility, and your life begins to reflect that shift in energy. The people who achieve extraordinary results do not allow fear and doubt to dictate their lives. They know that every successful decision starts internally. They know that the voice inside their head determines the energy they bring to their actions, and that energy determines outcomes. They do not wait for courage to appear. They create it through words, through thought, and through deliberate focus. They speak to themselves as if they are already who they want to become, and their actions naturally align with that belief. And the beauty of it is that anyone can do the same. You do not need permission. You do not need approval. You do not need perfect conditions. You need only to decide to speak with clarity, with authority, and with unwavering conviction to yourself for just 3 days. 3 days of consistent, intentional self-talk is enough to interrupt decades of programming. It is enough to begin breaking old patterns of fear, hesitation, and self-doubt. It is enough to create momentum that compounds over time. On the first day, you wake up and set your tone with words of power. On the second day, the habit begins to solidify. On the third day, you begin to notice the energy, clarity, and confidence that emerges naturally when fear and doubt are no longer leading. You begin to realize that the voice that once limited you can now be your greatest ally because it now works for you instead of against you. Imagine the ripple effect of this transformation. When your mind is aligned with courage and clarity, your actions follow. You start taking risks that feel appropriate, pursuing opportunities that you once avoided, and making decisions that reflect your highest potential. Your energy changes the way you interact with others. People notice the difference. Situations respond differently. Problems that once seemed insurmountable now have solutions because your mind is no longer clouded by fear and hesitation. Momentum builds quickly, and the results reinforce the internal change, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerates growth, progress, and success. This is not about eliminating fear entirely. Fear is natural. It is a signal, not a dictator. The key is to prevent fear and doubt from controlling your actions. You must consciously choose words that empower you, words that fuel courage, words that command action. Every time you interrupt fear with a word of power, you are training your brain, reshaping your habits, and strengthening your ability to act decisively. Every time you replace hesitation with certainty, you reinforce the neural pathways that create confidence, resilience, and unstoppable momentum. In 3 days, the foundation for a lifelong habit of empowerment is established, and the transformation is just beginning because momentum compounds exponentially over time. The extraordinary truth is that fear and doubt only have the power you give them. And you have the ability to withdraw that power at any moment. By committing to 3 days of intentional, empowering self-talk, you declare to yourself that you will no longer be controlled by internal limitations. You assert control over your own mind, your own energy, and your own destiny. You show yourself what is possible when you refuse to allow fear and doubt to dictate the terms of your life. You begin to experience firsthand the clarity, confidence, and momentum that comes from aligning your words with your highest potential. Once you experience even a fraction of this shift, you realize that everything begins internally. Your words, your thoughts, your focus, and your energy create your reality. By consciously speaking to yourself with courage, certainty, and determination for 3 days, you initiate a transformation that radiates through every area of your life. Your actions align with your intentions. Your energy shapes your interactions. Your mindset determines your outcomes. Momentum begins to build, and the path to achieving extraordinary results becomes clearer because your internal state now supports the external results you desire. Every negative thought you replace with empowering words is a victory, a step closer to your extraordinary life. Think about it, your mind as a battlefield, and the voice inside your head is either your greatest ally or your harshest enemy. Every thought you allow to take root shapes your perception, your emotions, and your actions. When you speak negatively to yourself, you reinforce doubt, fear, and limitation. You give power to excuses, hesitation, and procrastination. You feed a narrative that keeps you small, stuck, and unfulfilled. But every time you consciously choose to replace that negative thought with a word, phrase, or declaration that empowers you, you are reclaiming your power. You are taking a stand in your own life. You are asserting that your potential, your purpose, and your greatness are worth nurturing, defending, and growing. The process begins with awareness. Most people move through life on autopilot, unconsciously accepting the negative self-talk that has become habitual. They complain, they doubt, they criticize themselves, and they barely notice it. But the first step toward transformation is to recognize the moments when negativity arises. Catch the thoughts before they dictate your actions. Identify the phrases you tell yourself that limit your energy, confidence, and focus. Awareness is not judgment. It is observation. It is noticing that your inner dialogue has been controlling your behavior and deciding that you will no longer allow it to do so without your conscious participation. Once you are aware, you gain the power to intervene. Replacing negative thoughts with empowering words is not just about repeating affirmations or pretending everything is perfect. It is about issuing commands to your mind, creating a new internal narrative, and deliberately choosing language that aligns with your highest potential. When you hear, "I can't," you replace it with, "I can, I will. I always find a way." When you hear, "I'm not ready," you replace it with, "I am more than prepared. I am capable. I am unstoppable." When you feel doubt creeping in, you respond with certainty, clarity, and belief in your abilities. Each replacement is a small but powerful victory because it interrupts the habitual patterns that have been holding you back. It rewires your mind to focus on possibility rather than limitation, action rather than hesitation, growth rather than stagnation. 3 days of intentionally replacing negative self-talk is enough to create a seismic shift in your energy, focus, and momentum. On the first day, you become hyper, aware of your internal dialogue. You notice how often fear, doubt, and criticism arise. You consciously intercept these thoughts and replace them with words of empowerment. The effect is immediate. Your energy shifts, your posture changes, your confidence rises, and your mind begins to operate with clarity and precision. On the second day, the habit begins to solidify. Replacing negative thoughts with empowering words feels natural. Your brain begins to rewire, and the internal dialogue that once controlled you now works for you instead of against you. On the third day, you notice a new rhythm in your life. Your focus sharpens, your decisions become faster, your actions align with your goals, and momentum starts to build naturally because your internal narrative is now one of possibility, strength, and certainty. Consider the ripple effect of this practice. When your internal dialogue is empowering, your external world begins to reflect that change. You approach challenges with confidence instead of fear. You engage with people with clarity instead of hesitation. You take action on opportunities that you once ignored. Your energy shifts, and the people, circumstances, and results around you respond. Momentum accelerates because the internal victories compound. Every negative thought you intercept and replace strengthens your resilience, sharpens your focus, and reinforces the belief that you are capable of achieving extraordinary outcomes. The habit of replacing negative thoughts with empowering words is one of the fastest ways to generate progress in your life because it impacts every area: mental, emotional, physical, and relational. The science behind this is simple but profound. Neural pathways in your brain strengthen through repetition. Every thought you repeat reinforces a pattern. Negative thoughts create pathways of limitation, while empowering thoughts create pathways of possibility. By consciously replacing your negative self-talk with empowering words, you are literally reshaping your brain. You are rewiring your mind to focus on solutions rather than problems, on growth rather than limitation, on action rather than hesitation. This is not abstract theory, it is neurological reality. Your words are the commands that guide your brain, and by choosing empowering words, you give yourself a blueprint for success. The people who consistently achieve extraordinary results understand this principle intuitively. They do not rely on luck, circumstances, or external motivation. They cultivate the habit of replacing negative self-talk with empowering words consistently, deliberately, and without exception. They recognize that their internal narrative dictates their energy, focus, and action. They know that each victory over doubt, fear, and hesitation compounds into momentum, confidence, and results. And they understand that the most successful people are not those who never feel fear, doubt, or limitation. They are the people who refuse to let those feelings control their actions. They speak to themselves as if they are already who they want to become, and their actions naturally align with that belief. 3 days of this practice is enough to create lasting change because it provides proof. It shows you that you are capable of consciously controlling your internal dialogue. It shows you that you can intercept negative thoughts before they dictate your behavior. It shows you that you can replace fear with courage, hesitation with action, and doubt with certainty. And once you experience even a fraction of this shift, you begin to see the compounding effects. Your energy increases, your focus improves, your confidence grows, and momentum builds in ways that feel unstoppable. The habit becomes easier, more natural, and more integrated into your daily life because your brain begins to expect the empowering narrative rather than the limiting one. This is not about perfection. You will still experience negative thoughts, fear, and doubt. But the key is in the response. The moment you notice a negative thought, you replace it. The moment you feel hesitation, you speak a word of power. The moment doubt arises, you remind yourself of your capability, your potential, and your strength. Each replacement is a victory, and each victory reinforces the habit, strengthens your mind, and accelerates your momentum. The more you practice, the faster the internal victories compound into external results. Replacing negative thoughts with empowering words is the ultimate leverage in life. It is faster than any strategy, more effective than luck, and more reliable than external circumstances. Your inner dialogue dictates your energy, your focus, and your actions. By controlling it, you control the trajectory of your life. By winning the internal battle over fear, doubt, and hesitation, you position yourself to achieve extraordinary results. Every negative thought you replace is a brick laid in the foundation of your success, a step taken toward your highest potential, and a declaration that you will no longer be controlled by limitation. Your life mirrors your inner voice. Change your words, change your feelings, change your destiny. Every single moment of your life is influenced by the way you speak to yourself. Whether you realize it or not, the narrative you tell yourself becomes the lens through which you view the world, the filter through which you process every experience, and the energy that drives every action you take. Most people never stop to consider this. They assume that life happens to them, that circumstances dictate outcomes, that results are determined by luck, timing, or external forces. But the truth is far more empowering and far more frightening. Your life is a direct reflection of the voice you have allowed to dominate your mind. When your inner voice is critical, fearful, or doubtful, your actions reflect that. You hesitate, you avoid, you second guess yourself, you settle, you allow opportunities to pass, you give up before you even begin. You shrink from challenges because the voice in your head has convinced you that you are not ready, not capable, not deserving. And the sad reality is that most people live this way their entire lives without ever realizing that their results are not determined by the world. They are determined by the internal dialogue they have been repeating for decades. The good news is that the reverse is also true. When your inner voice is strong, empowered, and aligned with possibility, your life changes, your energy shifts, your focus sharpens, your confidence grows. Your actions align with your goals. Your destiny begins to reflect the person you are becoming on the inside. Think about the moments when you have felt unstoppable, when you have performed at your highest level, when challenges became opportunities instead of obstacles. Chances are, during those moments, your inner voice was not critical or fearful. It was supportive. It was confident. It was commanding. It was aligned with your potential. You spoke to yourself in a way that generated energy rather than drained it, that clarified direction rather than muddled it, that reinforced possibility rather than limitation. That is not a coincidence. That is a reflection of the undeniable principle. The words you speak to yourself shape your emotions, your decisions, your energy, and ultimately your life. This is why the practice of changing your internal dialogue is so powerful. It is not just about thinking positively or repeating affirmations. It is about deliberately taking control of the narrative that drives your emotions, your focus, and your behavior. It is about recognizing that every time you say, I can't, I'm not enough, or this is too hard, you are giving instructions to your mind, and your mind obeys. And every time you replace those words with, I can, I am capable, I will figure this out, you are doing the same. You are giving your mind instructions that empower you, focus your energy, and align your actions with your goals. 3 days of intentionally changing your inner dialogue is enough to create a seismic shift. On the first day, you become hyper-aware of your self-talk. You notice how often fear, doubt, and limitation creep in. You catch yourself thinking negative thoughts and immediately replace them with empowering ones. The effect is instantaneous. Your energy rises, your focus improves, your confidence grows. On the second day, the habit begins to take root. Your mind begins to anticipate the empowering words rather than the limiting ones. The internal narrative begins to shift. Your actions follow naturally because your focus and energy have changed. On the third day, you begin to experience the real power of your words. You notice a heightened sense of clarity. You feel more decisive, more confident, and more aligned with your goals. You realize that the inner voice you control determines the outer life you experience. The ripple effect of this practice is profound. When your inner dialogue is empowering, every area of your life begins to respond. Your relationships improve because the energy you project shifts. Your performance increases because your focus and confidence have strengthened. Your resilience grows because you have trained yourself to replace doubt and fear with certainty and courage. Momentum begins to build because each positive thought reinforces the next. Opportunities appear that you previously could not see. Challenges that once seemed insurmountable now feel manageable. Your actions align with your intentions because your inner voice is now guiding you rather than holding you back. The science behind this is simple but powerful. Every thought you repeat strengthens a neural pathway in your brain. Negative thoughts strengthen patterns of limitation, hesitation, and fear. Empowering thoughts strengthen patterns of confidence, clarity, and action. Your inner voice literally rewires your brain. By consciously choosing the words you speak to yourself, you are designing your perception, your energy, and your actions. The brain does not differentiate between words spoken in fear and words spoken with confidence. It obeys what you repeat consistently, and 3 days of deliberate self-talk is enough to begin reshaping those pathways in a meaningful way. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand this principle intuitively. They do not leave their mindset to chance. They consciously, deliberately, and consistently shape their inner dialogue to serve their potential. They know that the external world will always present challenges, setbacks, and obstacles, but the way they respond internally determines their outcomes. They speak to themselves with authority, confidence, and possibility. They command their attention, energy, and focus through the words they use internally. And the results they achieve are a reflection of this internal mastery. This is why it is crucial to commit to 3 days of intentional, empowering self-talk. It is a short enough period to feel manageable, but long enough to create a significant shift in your energy, focus, and momentum. It is enough to prove to yourself that you are capable of controlling your inner dialogue, shaping your internal narrative, and influencing the outcomes in your life. On the first day, awareness sets the foundation. On the second day, consistency strengthens the habit. On the third day, momentum begins to compound, creating a sense of power, clarity, and focus that you may not have felt in years. When you control your inner voice, you control your destiny. You are no longer a victim of circumstances, environment, or other people's expectations. You are the architect of your life. Your words dictate your thoughts dictate your feelings dictate your actions, and your actions dictate your results. Every negative thought you replace with an empowering one is a step closer to the life you want. Every moment you consciously direct your energy through words is a victory. Every day you practice this habit strengthens your ability to operate at your highest potential. The extraordinary truth is that your life is already reflecting the story you tell yourself. And the story you choose to tell can change everything. When you speak to yourself with intention, courage, and belief, your energy transforms, your focus sharpens, and your actions align with your goals. You experience momentum, clarity, and results that feel inevitable because your inner voice is no longer a source of limitation, but a catalyst for growth, progress, and achievement. By committing to 3 days of intentionally speaking to yourself with power, confidence, and possibility, you ignite a shift that resonates across every area of your life, creating the foundation for a future that mirrors the greatness you are capable of achieving.